Can't wait to visit the UK. Finally going to see what the English sound like in their natural habitat.
What makes you think it'd be any different to what you've already heard?
You know what? I bet there's some differences.
You might hear some different accents, perhaps, from those that maybe can't afford to go to Florida and grace you with their presence. Maybe you'll start to hear some of the riff-raff accents that we have in this country. You looking forward to that? The rough lot? Is that what you want to hear, Dwayne?
I'm from Jersey. We'll see how rough they can get.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Let's get into this one. Hello, welcome to Two Sides of the Pond. I managed to get the name right on this one. I've got it wrong on a couple of other videos recently. Even though I know with one, I know I got it wrong on one. When I watched back the other, I got it wrong twice and didn't even realise on one of them. I was like, what? Amazing. Brain fart of the day. But yes, my name is Matthew, and this is Dwayne over here. And this is my Adam's apple being hit by a big stress ball. And today we're talking about shit to do in the UK, isn't it? Things to watch out for in the UK, something like that.
Well, travel tips for Americans who are visiting for the very first time.
Travel tips, because apparently I can do that. I don't know why I suggested this topic, really, because I don't
This
really
is
know.
your idea. This was completely
idea.
yours. You were like, oh, we should do that on an episode. And I said, okay, great.
But the logic behind it, though, it wasn't because I thought I would have lots to share with you. It was just because I thought, well, this would be really good because you are coming to the UK very, very soon. And you could probably do with some tips. And that's as far as the thought went.
I have been doing some research on travel tips.
I'm glad one of us have. Because I don't do research. As you know, I don't do research. I'm not a research sort of person. But maybe you have found... do you have questions from the things that you have learned so far?
Well, we'll start with currency and payments, because that seems to be a big thing. I'm going to be spending money, while I'm there, and I keep getting told that less and less places accept cash, like paper money.
Yeah, it's not that. There are some places that will say card only. You'll see it in at the window or something. It says we're card only. It is becoming more common. I don't think you're going to experience that as an issue per se if you were to have cash, because a lot of the places that we're going to go to are a bit more mainstream. I tend to see that more in like villages and quieter areas of the country, not the big, tourism hotspots.
But yes. I don't want to have. I know I have a budget in my head about how much I'm going to be spending while I'm there, right?
Do you?
So I do. It's embarrassing, but with keeping that in mind, I don't think that I'm going to want to carry that amount of cash on me.
Yeah, you shouldn't need any cash, really. I mean, it might be wise to have some, I suppose.
But then I run into a problem with that.
Why?
So I hear that Oyster Cards are really not worth it. And Oyster Cards are the transportation cards. It actually costs money to get one.
Yeah, you wouldn't need it for you just.
There's like an entry fee, right?
Yeah. I don't have an Oyster Card. I don't live in London, so I don't have one. There'll be no point you getting one as a yank that comes over once in a blue moon. You know what I mean? Right. So there's no point at all.
Yeah. So there's that, and so I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna want to use my credit card, which also helps me with, I don't know, like keeping the. I don't know the right word exactly, but
amazing.
I don't. It'll keep me on
just
track.
Say random words now.
It'll keep me on track.
Okay. Track on what?
It'll happen. Like how much I'm spending, I check at the end of the day. It'll also be good protection. Good protection for me.
What, in case that underground mugs you off by a pound?
No. Protection isn't like, all right, so I'm buying things over there, and as I'm buying things, I'm going to want protection on the items that I'm buying, which made me lean towards the Amex card.
Okay.
But we have an issue with the Amex card. even though you don't have to get the international fees for using the card in another country, Amex isn't always accepted over
No,
there
it's
as
not. That is
well.
true. That is true.
So I'm kind of screwed. I don't want to carry the cash. I can't always depend on using my Amex. So I'm going to have to really be juggling some stuff around there. And that's a concern. That's something I never had to think about before. Normally, if I go on vacation, I will use the card because this is the first time I'm really going out of the country. Like,
exactly. I was going to say,
so
normally when you go on vacation, you're going up a bit north to a northern state. That's all you're
right.
doing. It's like, oh, I'll go to Tennessee because that's on holiday.
Right. For me, yes.
Yeah.
So this is very different for me. So
Yes,
being that Amex isn't accepted everywhere and I don't want to carry that amount of cash on me, I will be having some cash. Like that.
Quite a lot of places do accept Amex now. It is getting increasingly popular in the UK. But yes, there are still some places that don't. Randomly, you'll tap the card and it'll go, and it means, okay, you don't accept Amex. So you've got to use an alternative card. So if you have an alternative card, great, like a Visa or MasterCard, that'd be great if you have got one of those already. Or if you have, like, I don't know, something else. We have like Monzo and like I say Starling, that's not the one. But Star something, whatever they're called. It's other like modern banks that aren't really banks, sort of card.
Like credit unions?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all of my other cards that I have do charge me
it won't be much,
international rate. Well, no, it won't be.
And if you're only using it when Amex isn't accepted, doesn't really matter.
Right. But that's something an American did not know for the first time going over to the UK.
Exchange rates.
Which,
well, here's the thing then. Here's a comparison, right? So your Amex, you got the Amex Platinum, right? Yes. I've got two different Amexes. I have the British Airways Amex card. Obviously, I fly a lot, so it's beneficial for me to get additional Avios and points on my BA one. And through the business, through Dark Ocean, I also have a Amex Platinum business card. It's similar to what you've got, but just the business version. Now, both of my Amex cards will charge me a foreign exchange rate fee. None of the UK Amex cards give you 0 transaction fees.
So when you're in America, you get charged
any other
extra.
Country.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So because of that, for the business, for example, we also use Capital on Tap. We're giving some like finance stuff out there now, but we use Capital on Tap because they don't charge exchange rate fees. And the business Capital on Tap also allows you to collect Avios, which is still even better, you know. And so all of our foreign currency transactions, there's not many, but when we do have to pay for foreign things, because sometimes some of the services we use, like for example, we use DigitalOcean for our hosting for a lot of our other services as part of other parts of the business. They only charge us in dollars. There's no option for them to charge us in pounds. So we use the Capital and Tap card to pay for those monthly fees, and that way we don't have to pay the exchange rate. And then we use the Amex for anything else. But it's curious, isn't it? That same company in America, a lot of the Amex cards won't charge you a foreign transaction fee, but the UK ones do. So for that reason, I have a Barclaycard reward card that I use purely as a travel card. So whenever I go around other places, because that doesn't have exchange rate fees on it, I use that one for personal stuff.
Okay.
So
now, also transportation. That's another big one. Like I asked you to send me an address to something recently.
It's my house, I think it wasn't. And also where we're staying, yes. Yes, so you now know where I
live.
Both
places. Both places
where you're going to be staying. Give me the address.
It'd be nice to know where I was going, right?
Yeah, the most passive-aggressive message I've ever got from you. What's your address?
Oh, it was not passive-aggressive. Get over it. You know my address.
Yeah, but you volunteered that information. I didn't demand you for it. I'm going to turn up at your place one day randomly out of the blue and surprise you.
No, you're not.
No, I will. I was actually thinking this yesterday, that I will one day do it. One day I'll just randomly fly out and then disappear once we finish work. Yeah. At some point, maybe this year, I'll just randomly show up.
So, transportation being, I don't do public transportation here in the States.
No,
I've
you better
always had
stop.
issues with it. I do not feel confident. It's been years since I've done it. So I am worried because I know there'll be days I'll be going on the bus line on my own.
Yep. Or the
Now,
train.
or the train on my own. So addresses there are so different than over here.
Yeah, you mentioned this the other day.
Yeah, they don't make sense to me just because
Why
I've
not?
never.
That's an interesting one because again, your American addresses are usually quite doolally because your house numbers start
Mhm.
usually in the thousands. The first one is like 5,269. That's the
Sometimes,
first
yeah.
number on the
Okay.
street. It's like, well, why? What happened to the other 5,268 houses? They don't exist. Why do you start at that number? That's mad. Whereas our streets, we
Hmm.
usually start from one, and quite often doesn't always apply, but quite often you have odd numbers on one side of the road and even on the other. So if you're
That's what
looking
we
for
have.
even, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So there you go. Doesn't always
Yeah.
apply, but quite
Hmm.
often that's what you're doing. You switch sides, but it just goes up sequentially. That's all it does.
See, but okay, if I'm remembering one of the addresses off the top of my head that I looked up, I believe it said T1 as towards the end. I have no idea what I
So that's the
don't
postcode, wasn't it?
understand.
Yeah, because you're used to zip
Where
codes, which is 5
yes,
numbers,
yes,
right? Whereas we
yes.
have postal codes, which is a combination of letters and numbers. So, fun fact as well, quite a lot of places back in the day, you still have it a little bit now, but not so much. Back in the day, if you were to try and buy something from a foreign website, I've done this before with Apple in the US, where I've gone to buy something from a store in a mall in Florida. Bearing in mind, Apple is a global company, and they want me to
Mhm.
give them a zip code and provide them with a ID. And so I give them my ID and say, well, I'm from the UK. He goes, I need a zip code. I don't have a zip code, dickhead. I'm from the UK. I don't live here. You're a global company, all right? You should be able to handle my information. So you had to put it through as the store address because the system would not allow them to put in a postal code because it only
Mhm.
wanted numbers. How dumb is that? I can understand it if it was
Yeah.
a local company only, but this is Apple who can do things in any country. But for some reason, the systems in the US were just restricted just to the US. It's like you must have tourists buying stuff from you all the time. If you have a store in a tourist location, like in the Mall of Millennia, the amount
Mhm.
of people in there surely is going to be a high number of tourists
Oh,
buying
let's
the
not
latest
get
gadgets.
into the people that work at Mall Millennia. That'll be on Patreon. I
Okay.
had a conversation this morning with someone at the Mall Millennia
Okay.
at the Apple Store. We will be talking
But
about
it's your
that
favorite
in
place,
our
Dwayne.
Patreon. The
You
Mall
love the Mall of
Millennia
Millennia,
is absolutely,
but
I
Apple is
do.
not.
I call it my Holy Land experience. And if you're
Yeah,
from this area, you know, you know. But you have to hear the story on Patreon. Anyway,
you're right. Join the
so
Patreon.
yeah. Now, so I'm a little nervous about following the bus lines. But interestingly enough, we started planning this trip a couple of months ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we're in February. So we started planning this trip in mid-December. Beginning of December was when I started really like looking at flights and everything else. I got my flight, I got everything taken care of, and then a friend of mine from Australia said, "Hey, you got your visa yet?" I'm like, "No, I have a passport. I'm good." He goes, "No, no, no. You need a UK ETA, which is another form of visa for the Americans to travel over to the UK."
Yeah. The same with us.
Never
We have
heard of
the
that
ESTA.
before. But
Yeah.
apparently, this is something brand new as of January 8th of 2025. So it hadn't gone into effect yet, but I would have totally like spazzed out and not even know that was a thing. So that is something this year that's very important. I could imagine all the, as you call them, stupid Americans trying to get back home or getting into UK and not being allowed to because this takes
Get the fuck out of
10,
here.
it takes like 7 to 10 business days minimum
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get this
But quite a
visa.
lot of airlines will tell you that. So I don't know what the American airlines do. Also, you're flying Virgin Atlantic, although via Delta. So I don't know who
Yes.
contacts you with stuff. But I know British Airways, they will often email me around, have you got your visa? With checklist stuff, ahead of time to make sure you have got these things covered. I know we're doing visa changes when it comes to Europe because we're no longer part of the EU. I don't know if the American visa is part of that. Perhaps it could be, because we're no longer under the EU banner of, your right to travel. It was a different system, so it might be linked to that. Maybe, I don't know, because I know we have visas coming into effect from March or April this year, I think, for us to go to Europe. Whereas we've been able to do it easily before, but now you got to pay £12 for a visa. Like last 2 years, and everyone's crying about it. It's like, it's £12. Get over it. It doesn't matter.
If you want to travel, just get it.
Yeah. But that is interesting, though. But
yeah. I mean, that was completely mind blowing to me. That I thought I had all my ducks in a row, and if something that big, was just dropped into my lap, I can't imagine that I've never heard of before.
Yeah.
How many other things am I missing? Which gets the mind reeling and thinking, hey, who else doesn't know about this? And not only do they not know about, what don't I know? What else is there? So there's that. And I kind of lean heavily on you for these things. However, you never told me about it, so whatever.
I would have at some point.
Eventually.
I just didn't then.
The day before, I'll be packing going, oh, do I need, my wellies? And you'll say, well, you got your visa, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't have been that close, but I would have got into it
eventually
at some point. Yeah, I would have.
So on the same lines of transportation, though, I found it very interesting when you're looking to rent a vehicle, which you will not allow me to do. We've talked about this a couple of times. You will not allow me to rent a vehicle or drive in the UK. You've never seen me drive. You have no idea what I can and cannot rent a vehicle.
Hang on, let's just add a bit of context around this. So it wasn't that I don't want you to drive at all, but your idea was to make things a bit easier on me rather than me driving 3 hours to pick you up from the airport and then take you back down to the southwest. Was for you to get a car and come down on your own. Now, there's a few
very considerate of me, by the way.
Absolutely. And my response to you was also considerate around your well-being.
Yes,
right? Because first and foremost, I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing, so it's a lot easier for me to drive. Right? I'm used to it. It's easy. Right? It's simple to do. It doesn't put me out coming to pick you up. Right? It's all part of you visiting. Right? It's a service I offer. I expect a good tip. But
I'll be in the UK. You don't accept tips. Go on.
Some places do.
We'll get into that one in a little bit, but go on.
Yeah, right. So, but the second part of it is that the rental cars are not on location. It's similar to with Orlando, for example, the rental car lot is right there as you walk out the terminal, right? You walk to it, it's quite easy. With Heathrow, it's not difficult, but you got to get on a shuttle bus. You got to get the right one. It's then going to take you off location to one of the perimeter areas. Then when you drive, you've got to navigate around the airport perimeter itself, which again is your first place driving, trying to figure out how the fuck do I get back to the motorway to get down to me. That's not easiest. Again, you've just flown for 9-10 hours. You're going to be exhausted. It's early hours of the morning. You probably will be quite tired. It is the opposite side of the car as well. It will likely be a manual unless you pay a premium to get an automatic.
And that was my point about the driving and renting cars. You guys are so behind in the times with some things, where manual is the preferred majority of types of cars that you have.
It's changing now.
Everything's changing, but you're going very slowly about this.
Yeah, but you got to understand, in the UK, the sort of driving is very, very different. Whereas in America, you have massive, wide open roads that predominantly go straight and you never steer. Right? It's so easy to drive in America. It's a straight line anywhere, more or less. Especially when you think about your grid system as well. Yes. The ways your houses, whereas us, it's not. We have windy roads, we have country lanes. It's a very different type of driving here. So it's been slower to adopt automatic because manual's always been part of the driving that you do. Now, I prefer automatic. I always do. My car that I have now is automatic. I'm always going to buy an automatic going forwards, unless there is a specific reason why I want to have a manual car, which is unlikely. But, I prefer automatic. But it is getting there. But as a rental car, you'll generally pay a premium for the automatics. Now, the other problem as well is there are two ways to get to mine. There is the motorway way, which is technically more miles, but is an easier drive. Or there is the A303 way, which is a horrible drive, and you can get stuck in traffic there for donkeys because you go past Stonehenge and every bastard slams on their brakes to have a look at a bunch of fucking rocks.
We could be
No.
passing Stone. No,
No,
not
we
happening.
won't be.
Okay.
I don't go down that road.
Okay,
Cannot
I'm
be.
just
It's
curious.
just shit. It's just and again you can't see much
It's
from the
just
car anyway.
rocks.
You really can't. It is. Yeah. I mean, it's cool to go to if you wanted to, but you specifically go there if you want
Yeah.
to. Don't just slow down, cause congestion, stare out the window. Stupid. But if you were to put things into your sat nav or whatever, it will likely take you the 303 route, and as you won't quite know, which way to go, you'll probably have more reliance on the sat nav, and it might give you one hell of a drive dealing with roundabouts, which you may not be used to, where you got to make sure you check your right hand side. And if you got a manual car, you'd be changing gear a lot, and you might be slapping your arm against the door because you're not used to it being the other side, right? There are things like that might give you a stressful experience, and I also know how you can get overwhelmed at things at times. So but it's true, right? Again, it's your well-being. It's true. After a long journey to somewhere you haven't been before, is a lot of new things. Why add more new experiences on top of that to put more pressure on you when it is easier for me to come and get you and chauffeur you back down to the southwest? Right. Now, if you want to get a car when you're here, by all means, you can do that. You can have fun paying for parking in the high street. It sucks ass, but yeah, you can do that.
Okay. The other thing was weather. You always hear how over in, especially London, and I'm assuming by you as well, because I mean, it's only 3 hours away, even though weather can be massively different. The sun isn't a huge thing over there. It's mostly overcast and it rains a lot throughout the year.
Yeah. So for comparison,
I did not even
cold.
think about, like, I knew to dress and have layers when I'm packing. I totally get that. It's what you do. No big deal. I never even thought about an umbrella.
I mean, yeah,
like I just never. It was just one of those things that if I'm walking the streets of London, going from department store to pubs, restaurant, whatever, walking around, taking in the sights, I'm going to want to bring an umbrella, which I, for some strange reason, did not even cross my mind that an umbrella would probably be a good idea.
And you'll just see me just getting wet, just getting rained on.
Well, would you though?
Carry on. Yeah, because it does rain, but
you don't use one.
I don't generally. I just have a hoodie if I want to, or just get wet. Because usually, although it does rain, you think the amount of times I'm actually out in the rain is quite minimal. It's easy to pop in somewhere, right, and try and time moving about. So I can't bother to carry around one just for the few minutes of. Well, and then when it gets windy as well, the thing turns inside out and you fucking fly off like Mary Poppins. So it's just not worth it.
Which I get that. I do get that. But it's kind of like when people complain that it's 105 degrees Fahrenheit here. And oh my God, it's so hot. Well, you're not standing. How often are you really standing outside? I go from my air conditioned house to my air conditioned car to park to walk a minute and a half at the most to get inside air conditioning.
That slaps you like a fucking saggy nutsack, though. Well, it's like if you were to compare that for apples to apples, that's like walking outside your house in the UK and being hit by a tidal wave of water, right? And you're drenched instantly. That's the comparison. But it's not. You're getting drizzled on here, and it's just, and sometimes it can be that real dry rain as well. It's really weird. Sometimes you get the
dry
wet
rain.
Yeah, you get dry rain. Have you not had that?
Where you might
not. That might not be a thing.
Is it like mist? Like what's dry rain?
No, mist. Mist is the real wet rain. When it gets misty, you get drenched really, really quickly. But sometimes it can be chucking it down, but you're not getting all that wet. It's like real big raindrops, but they're a bit further apart, so you're not getting all that wet. Whereas when it's real misty and just sort of horrible, you're just dripping wet. It's really weird. It must be a UK thing.
I hope I experience that because I want to go outside with you and you go, oh, this is dry rain, by the way.
Yes, it's dry rain. It's hard to explain, but yeah, you get different types of rain here. But yeah, there's a few things to sort of point out, though, based on some things to expect. Also, we talk about roads and driving. You got to make sure you look right, especially before crossing the road. Your instincts could get you killed. So, best advice for you is just look both ways. Wherever you
Well, just
are, always look both
crossing the
ways.
street, the street, people will run your ass over. I see.
Yeah, probably.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, and then the last thing I think
was-
we're going to touch upon for this episode is going to be tipping culture, because a lot of people here in the United States have accepted the fact that you tip for a service when it comes to food, when it comes to other services like getting your hair cut, uh, things along that nature. But in the UK, that's not a thing. However, what people don't realize is they have started adding a service fee on, like, yeah, it's a service charge that they will add to your checks. Here in America, a lot of restaurants have the policy that 8 or more people, we automatically add 18% gratuity to your bill. And then people don't realize that, and they look on the bottom and they just say, oh, that's my total. And they add 20% to that.
Yeah.
When they've already been charged 18% or 20% by the restaurant because of the size of the party. If you want a tip, I'm sure that's fine. No one's going to be like, no, keep your money. But to always check if there's a service charge on your bill. Because I'm looking to go into a couple of different cafes while we're there in London proper itself. And I was checking out some YouTube videos about reviews of the places to find out which one I want to get a reservation for, because they are on the more popular side, the ones I'm looking at. And they showed, oh, by the way, they add a 12 or a 15% service charge. That, for Americans, is the tip. That's what it is. Now, I'm kind of curious to find out if the service charge goes to the restaurant, or does the service charge goes to the server, or is it split? I mean,
it could be split. It can vary from place to place.
My understanding is, and why would somebody want to do this, unless you're a crotchety old man, or if you're Matthew, like, you could request that the service charge be taken off your check.
You can, yeah.
I would guess for really horrible service, but yeah. For really horrible service, I would still tip you, but I wouldn't come back and give you my service again. You know, I wouldn't give you my money again. So
yeah, that's fair. That is fair. But yeah, but there is more to talk about. That there are more things to point out, which we can do in our debrief on our Patreon after this. If you want to hear more around the tips that I can give you and some things to watch out for, so you don't get yourself stabbed in London or something stupid, because that's a thing. Then join our Patreon. We also add debrief videos after every single episode, where we either continue the conversation or we go off on a weird tangent in some other direction.
We talk a lot of business in the last couple ones. It's very interesting. Yeah. I was just reviewing some of them.
You've just watched them, haven't you? Yeah.
Yeah. And we've talked about your calendar, what you're doing for the next year. There's a whole debriefing of us yelling at each other, by the way. That is interesting and that is fun. Us arguing back and forth, just getting mad at each other.
What was that about? What was the context on that one? What were we arguing about?
You being right as always. That's usually that's how these things usually go. I believe one of the phrases you said was, "You're trying to catch me out, and you will never catch me out."
I remember saying that. Join our Patreon. There's some awesome stuff over there. It's really good. It's worth the watch. Apparently, I need to watch it as well. I'd have a right giggle. So there we go. But until the next one, I'll say goodbye for now to Dwayne, and goodbye to you guys.
Have a good day. And if you are going to America, get your damn visa from the UK. If you're going to the UK, get your visa.
Well, both. If you go to the US, get your rest. If you come into the UK, get the whatever the fuck thing it's called these days.
ETA, whatever. All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye. Toodles.